The Way Back, not to be confused with The Way, Way Back, one of my favorite movies of all time, by the way, is a new sports drama starring Ben Affleck. So, is it any good? Does it revitalize that kind of weakening genre? Let's dive right in. What's up, it's Film Frenzy. I'm very excited today to talk about The Way Back, directed by Gavin O'Connor and starring Ben Affleck. Let's get right into the review with my first category of direction and visuals. So, starting with direction and visuals, the film was already getting off on an uneven note, which you'll see is a theme that peppers my review today. And so, it is really all over the place. Right from the beginning of the film, I was really impressed though, because kind of like for the first maybe 2 or 3 minutes, before they reveal the title on the screen that says The Way Back, there's no dialogue. It's just silent with some scoring and some sounds and stuff. But it's all pure visual and it's really phenomenal shots. Really gives you a lot of vibe of the type of the movie that's gonna be, and it gives you a dive into Ben Affleck's character, his day-to-day life. And I thought that was really impressive and made it just differentiate from the standard formula, because as you'll see, lots of critics, I'm sure, and just lots of people are going to be comparing this to the standard, second chance sports movie formula. And right from the beginning, it tried to differentiate itself and go the extra mile by having this little kind of silent film part to it. And I thought that was really impressive. I thought it really did great, and it all works because of just direction and the visual realm, which is an excellent start to the film. But then it goes all over the place, because it seems for some of the scenes, particularly the dialogue scenes, they were really awkwardly shot. They do these things I thought were completely taboo, and I was just shocked. I thought I was seeing the movie wrong, or the projection screen was shaking or something, because you get these awkward shakes that it felt like they're trying to make it raw, but it almost more felt like a mockumentary, but poorly done mockumentary. It didn't have the right raw feel to it that somebody I don't know, Jonah Hill in the movie mid-90s, he pulls that off perfectly. Here, not so much. It's kind of shaking. It feels kind of unintentional and awkward. And during lots of these conversations, particularly a couple other scenes, there'll be these zoom ins, and it's you're not Wes Anderson, and even then, I'm not a huge fan of it. It just doesn't look good on screen, and the zooms are kind of stop starting, they're really awkward. There's a couple good fade-ins that actually work, or where it kind of comes in slowly, but most of the time there's these awkward where it's this as it slowly comes out on the character's face, and it's feels like it's a 1950s movie or something, where there's those weird awkward noir drama and stuff, where that's one of the things that just doesn't age well with that type of film, those really old movies. And it has in this, and that was really, really strange. There's a couple other strange things, some overexposed shots, at least in the background, and just on technical levels, some things that just didn't really work, that were kind of awkward and threw you for a loop, because for the most part, this movie is really, really visually spectacular. I mean, there's some amazing shots in here, and I feel they were always trying to be creative. Like I said, with the first couple minutes of the film, they're going the extra mile. They keep that up with a lot of shots of symbolism and subtlety, which was really impressive, because they're trying to make art with this movie, and I respect its ambition so much. Even when sometimes it falters a bit, when I mentioned the technical stuff, it was still trying something, and it could have just been mundane and get a solid score from me out of this category, because, the direction and visuals are fine, but I thought by trying some new stuff, yeah, there's some things that didn't work very well, but there was some stuff that worked really, really well and paid off in spades. And besides, it made the experience just way more interesting and really got you more into the film. The last thing I want to talk about with this category is, of course, the basketball shots, because it's a sports movie. How are you going to show it? Basketball is a very frenetic game, so it's kind of difficult, but also it can be really awesome if it's done well, the shots for it. And I thought it had a very frenetic feel that I really liked, showing Ben Affleck, calling out plays, getting really intense. It had a good energy to it, and then it showed the plays, and kind of got used to it. I think it got better as the movie went on, but at least at first, I found that it was almost going too fast, or you couldn't follow the game as well as I would have liked. I'm not the biggest basketball fanatic, and I don't watch the game a ton, but still, I know the game decently, and I thought that sometimes it wasn't as easy to follow as it could have been, because I wanted to see some of the plays more and stuff, and I thought by switching around too much, it lost a little bit of that. It got better as the movie went on, like I said, but it did have a nice energy to it, and I thought the direction overall created a firm tone. So for direction and visuals, yeah, there's some difficulties, but I'm still giving it a very, very solid 3.5 out of 5. Now it's time to discuss some acting and character development. I'm just going to go out and say it. I think Ben Affleck should be nominated for Best Actor at the 2020 Academy Awards. He did such a good job. I was stunned. I've always thought he was a good actor, but I've never seen him in a role of this caliber. It seems like the critics are really agreeing on that, which is awesome because he carries the film. He's easily the best part of The Way Back, and oh my gosh, he just goes right into the character. It's impressive because I know he's like struggled with like alcoholism and problems like that in the past, and he channels all of it so well. He plays so many layers. The thing is though, like on the surface, this seems like one of those cliche like second chance sports movie characters like I've been saying, but the formula is elevated because his performance is so just like on point and so committed. Plus, what I'll talk about later with the screenplay is his character is so well developed. There's so many layers that keep on unfolding that you get a fully sensed picture that this is like the character that cliche was originally based on, because cliches are pretty much based on true things and they're just like, you know, hyperbolized to the point where they're just kind of feel inauthentic. But this one was genuine. This is what the formula should be, where it's based off of. And he felt like somebody that you could meet. You pitied him at times. You kind of felt like contempt for him. But at the end of the day, you always were sympathizing because you know who he can be and the things that are holding him back. It was just such a phenomenal performance and such a phenomenal lead character. It just carried this movie so much because there's a lot of things that are uneven with it. But gosh, Ben Affleck just did a phenomenal job. His part was well written. Character development was just on point. There was an arc that was like not overstated at all and very believable, but still like there and substantial. Impressive balance. I wish it was just as good for all the other characters, but they were still excellently played. I thought it was cool that like he was the only like big A-lister in this movie. And besides, like, I mean, I'm sure I'm like just not recognizing some actors and maybe they're on TV and stuff and I just don't know them. But I thought, like, just seeing lots of these actors that I've never seen before in movies, they did a phenomenal job. I mean, the cast was just really well casted, and they all really committed to their roles very well, and they fit right in, and it made the movie just a lot more immersive, I guess largely because I didn't recognize them like Ben Affleck, even though Ben Affleck completely immersed into his character of Jack Cunningham, which was just really good job, like I've said before. Anyway, with the supporting characters, I thought that at first it seemed like lots of them were kind of caricatures, especially like the kids on the basketball team, because it seems like in lots of these where it's like the main character is the coach, like you kind of get these cliches, like these caricatures where they're pretty one note. Each of the different kids on the basketball team, or on the football team, if it's Remember the Titans, or like on the baseball team, if it's Moneyball, etc. But I thought this one, even though lots of them were cliches, I would want a little bit more interest. It would have just detracted from the story a bit, and I thought these were believable characters still, and they were expertly played by all the cast, so it made it believable enough, though I did feel like sometimes it was a little one note, and that's unfortunate, but I have to accept that's inevitable. I mean, there's going to be like 5 guys on the court for basketball, plus like guys on the bench, so that's what you're going to get. And the other supporting characters, like the assistant coach, really well job. Just an understated role. I just thought it was perfect. Then there was the separated wife of Jack Cunningham, who she did a phenomenal job. Her character is very well developed and believable. Really just impactful conversations. The rest of Jack's family was really good. I feel like just everybody in this movie had a really good substantial role, but sometimes it could be a little bit too much. And this is something I'll talk about a little bit later. But in terms of just like the characters and the subplots, I really did feel for lots of these other characters in their like miniature subplots, but sometimes it can detract a little from the story, or the subplots just don't feel as balanced. I mean, I think they could have definitely pulled it off, and they were really close to getting it, because like these subplots and like all the characters' miniature journeys were like super impactful. I mean, they didn't really detract from Jack's, as I would say, because like, I mean, I've already lauded that performance and that character development a ton, but I feel like from each other, they could have been a little bit more balanced, the different like subplots and the different like character developments, but still the arcs were solid. The acting and character development is probably the best part about this movie and really carries it. Phenomenal job, 4.5 out of 5. And finally, it's time to talk about plot, pacing, script, and theme. I've already talked a little bit about how some of the subplots can feel a little unbalanced, but still they do a really good job delivering like their messages and all kind of contribute to the greater whole of the theme, which I'll talk about very briefly. Anyway, going back to the plot, I found that it kind of often elevates the formula. Like, yes, it is formulaic in many senses in terms of these sports movies, and I got a really bad sense from when I first sat down in the theater and I saw it said, like, this is his one shot to get a second chance, and I was just like, facepalm. I thought this movie was going to be terrible because you have, like, this really kind of lazy basketball pun with the one shot, and then second chance literally in the tagline. Like, yeah, we know these movies are second chance. Please don't draw attention to it. But even though I thought lots of these things definitely had a little bit of the formula and relied on that, that's inevitable and that's okay, because I thought lots of the moments in this movie weren't predictable, and sometimes its unevenness made it less formulaic and more just like intriguing in that like you don't always know what's going to happen. It throws you for some turns and stuff, and I think there's like some big reveals I'm not going to spoil here, but were very dark and took the movie in interesting places. It really does earn its R rating. I think that's a great asset for this film and definitely makes it differentiate, just like that first like silent film-esque part of like the first couple minutes. This film gets very dark and gritty, and even though like the shaky cam doesn't really work, the script and stuff and just the overall like atmosphere definitely makes it differentiate from a movie like Hoosiers, for example, or Remember the Titans, and just the darker turns the plot takes and how they like subtly hint at them, and then when it gets there, it just really hits you like a ton of bricks. And I thought that was very, very impressive. So yeah, the plot can be a bit uneven at times, and like the subplots aren't always the most balanced, but I think it really does elevate the formula. It did have the potential to be fantastic, though just some unevenness kind of hinders it a bit. Moving on though to the pacing, that's the same kind of thing in that with the plot, I feel like often you would have these like things where it would go up and down, like with the highs and lows and stuff. I know every movie has highs and lows, but it's how well you mask those, where it doesn't feel as manipulative. And this movie, I wouldn't say is like flat out manipulative. Like it felt very real, and like it was all going for a purpose and stuff, and it didn't feel like disingenuous. But I feel like often at times I feel like it would just go to another high, or like they'd add another like difficulty to his life, another drawback, and it felt a little bit like inserted, and like you knew where this was kind of like going like up and down, and it was a bit too much, and it felt like it made it kind of have this like herky-jerky feel where you didn't know where the movie was going to end. And personally, I'm not a fan of that, where the pacing doesn't feel as smooth. Occasionally it can work if the movie's really intended for that, and yes, it was a gritty movie, but it didn't really feel as natural here. And this movie was only an hour 48 minutes, but because I guess the plot is very dense, which is an impressive thing, but also kind of makes a bit too much of those up and downs, I thought this movie felt more like maybe 2 hours and 10 minutes, which is a lot longer than it actually was. But the big thing that I will say that I'll praise about the pacing is it ended at the perfect moment. I would have maybe cut out some of the stuff in the middle, or maybe made it feel a little bit smoother where it doesn't like feel like it drags on for as long. But the way it ended was really, really perfect. I thought it was going to go on a little bit longer and have one of those like lame resolutions. It did not. It ended on a beautiful shot. I'm not going to spoil it, but just I was like clapping at the end, just because even though the movie is very uneven, it's not perfect at all. When a movie ends on such a high note, it just leaves such a great taste in your mouth. And yeah, so I thought that was really impressive. And moving on quickly with the script, so there are some jokes in this movie, and I think almost all of them do land. There's not many attempted, which I think very fits the film, and it felt very natural when there was a joke. Like, it didn't feel clumsily inserted, like, let's say, the recent Star Wars movies, for example. So I thought that was really good. This movie did know its tone. One of the few things that it wasn't uneven about, kind of ironic since most movies do have, like, tonal imbalances. Also with the script leads me to the drama, which felt very authentic and just very natural. There wasn't any like lines in the film at all where I was just like a little cringy or it felt a little awkward. Lots of that is because of great direction and like some great acting and performances where like the characters are fully realized because of the script, and also because of the, like the casting that was done. So it's just like a lot of it coming together. But I thought that the script really was solid and it had some very impactful lines. It's not like Aaron Sorkin level scripter or anything, but the overall tone and the atmosphere was held together so well. It's because of really just solid scripting. Very just well balanced. One of the few things in this film that I would say is just the dialogue and the tone are really well balanced throughout. Yeah, sometimes the script leads to some, like, you know, what I talked about earlier with the plot being all herky-jerky all over the place, but the dialogue is really, really great. And finally, theme. So this is what I've been leading up to. This is the final thing I want to talk about before I give my overall score. And I was really impressed by it because I thought it took a slightly different thing in that it's not as like blatantly optimistic as most of these second chance films. It's a little bit more like pragmatic and like nuanced, which I really respected. And it was not an overstated theme at all, but it wasn't like too subtle where like you're looking too hard for it, which is like what I like. That's a personal taste. But I would say the theme personally was kind of about like, what do you do with hardships? Everybody in this movie, they talk about these little hardships that they've had. Sometimes it's pretty cleverly inserted into the conversations, but it's just how you deal with it. Of course, it's kind of the more obvious one is Ben Affleck when the alcoholism, with the like some difficult things in his life. I'm not going to spoil, but throughout the film, you see all these different characters going through these different struggles, and you see these different relationships and how they're building and stuff, and different character arcs, and people learning from each other, and just about how life is tough. This movie makes a lot of comments on faith, and that plays into that Ben Affleck, he's coaching at this Catholic high school I used to go to. So I thought they could have played a little bit more into the faith thing. That'd be very interesting. Like, not make it like a Christian movie or anything, but I mean make it more like where it's like commentates on that and stuff. But it did touch on those. I thought those were some of the strongest, just most resonant conversations in the entire film. I would have liked more of it, but I thought the themes were super impactful, and perhaps the best thing outside of the acting and character development. So yeah, plot, pacing, script, theme, a little all over the place. I'm still giving it a really, really solid 3.5 out of 5. So that leads to my overall score. And so before I give it, I just kind of want to say like what I felt like right after the film. I was like, this is one of those movies that comes out early in the year that they kind of just dump like in the middle of like, you know, nowhere and stuff, and they don't really have any plans for this to be an Oscar bait movie, even though this kind of feels like it could be. And I'm like, I think this is going to get maybe like 40%, but it's going to be one of those movies I actually really like, and I think, yeah, it has a lot of flaws, but that like, it was very resonant for me. But then I saw today, as of right now, 85% Rotten Tomatoes, which I'm like, wow, I mean, I'm happy about that because I agree with that. I thought it was a really good movie. But for my overall score, this was a tough one to come up with just because the strong elements of this movie are so strong, but there's some big weaknesses. Overall, though, I'm going to be giving The Way Back, a drum roll please, 3.75 out of 5. A really, really solid movie that I highly recommend you go see just because it really did stick with me. And even though there's a lot of flaws, I think it's a movie that will stick with you. It's memorable. It's not too formulaic, and it uses the formula when it does use it very well. I hope you enjoyed this review. I hope you guys go out and watch the movie. Comment down below your opinions on it. Make sure to stay tuned for more Film Frenzy reviews, rankings, and other movie-related videos coming soon. Like and subscribe for more awesome stuff. I'll see you guys later. Goodbye.